Hello everyone, my name is Sumit and today I am going to show you how to create a natural scenery like this using Blender. Now without any much further ado or without wasting any more time, let us jump into our Blender application in order to create that thing. So here we are in our Blender. I'm using Blender 2.79 and let us get started. Now for the convenience, let me at first turn on the screencast key so that everything will be displayed. What am I doing here? At first I will get rid of all these cubes and cameras and lights from our scene by just hitting delete. Now here I will be setting up my environment lighting at first. So I will be hitting numpad 5 to go to the orthographic views, and then numpad 1 in order to go to front orthographic view. And at first I will be setting up the camera. So I've set up the camera in order to see my camera views and align my camera into the front orthographic view. I will just hit Ctrl Alt and numpad 0, and with holding Shift and middle mouse button I will align it just as I want my camera to be in position. Yeah, this position seems to be good to me. And now the major step that I will be doing is adding the world setup over here using nodes. Instead of tweaking the colors and strength of my world, I will just use volumetric lights here. What I want to create is setting up my entire world scene as a volumetric light. So I will be going to volume scatter, and the density of the volume I will be cranking it up to 0.15. This seems to be good for illuminating a night scene. Now in order to see whether my scene is actually working, let me at first pick up a point lamp by just hitting Shift and A. I've created a point lamp over here, and immediately you will see that there is a tab of the lamp that we have selected here. We'll go to that lamp settings and increase the volume and increase the strength up to maybe 1000, and I'll be giving the light of it to be a bluish color so that the entire scene is actually illuminating as dusk type. Now just going to the Shift Z, I will be going into the viewport rendered engine in order to see whether my lamp is working. Okay, it's working very fine. I'm just putting my lamp just above the camera so that noise wouldn't show up when I'm actually rendering it. Again, going to the viewport render engine, I can see that the scene has been illuminated. Maybe I can crank my lamp up a little bit, 2000. Yeah, 2000 seems to be fine, and I'll be duplicating this lamp again and putting the second lamp over here and giving it a little bit of light. I'll be giving it maybe 500 and giving it purple like tone, so that, and putting my lamp over here. So the point of doing this is just to give each and every lamp, whatever light source we are putting, just outside the camera length so that noise won't show up. Accidentally, if I'm just bringing it here into the view of the camera, you can see that there are a lot of noises that is going on here. So the point of it is just to leave the lamp outside the camera lens. Okay, now as my light has been set up, now I will be going into the modeling mode. I'll be modeling at first the lake over here. I'll be putting a plane, increase the size to about 10, and yeah, this seems to be good. Now before doing anything, and because Blender oftenly crashes using these volumetric lights, So at first I will be going to save my project so that if it accidentally crashes there will be no issue. So I'll be going to the desktop and saving it as tutorial. Okay, now I have saved my project so that there is no accidents that is going on here. If there is an accident we will be backing it up. Now we'll at first have to apply the scale, rotation and scale of the plane so that it is back to normal. Now we have to go to the edit mode by just hitting tab and pressing W. We have to subdivide this plane 100 times so that the entire mesh is subdivided 100 times, and whatever we may apply it will be applied within its short division. Now we'll be adding a displacement modifier to the plane because we want our plane to look like as if it is a lake. So we'll be adding a displacement modifier and hitting over this area, it will directly take us to the texture tab. Now hitting the new texture, we will be at first we will be setting it to the clouds and decrease the size of it to 0.05 so that there is a more jagged type of geometry that is going around here. And again, returning back to our modifiers tab, we'll be cranking the strength to about 0.02. Now you can see very little of the jagged. Okay, maybe 0.1. Yeah, this is good. It seems like a little bit of waves. Now again, another modifier that we have to use is subdivision surface, and we'll be increasing the viewport so that we can see that it is actually simulating waves. Another modifier that we have to add is another displacement modifier, the third time, and this time we will be using noise texture as our texture. And again, returning back to our modifiers tab, we will be cranking the strength up to 0.02. So you can see that it has got a fine substance. Okay, it will be 0.01. Yeah, this is good. I'll be smoothing the shading, and we'll be again saving it project because I'm using a low grade computer and it crashes a lot. Okay, so after saving our project, we have saved our project. This is actually our lake. Now we have to simulate, we have to create the land. Now in order to create the land, we have to add another plane. This plane that we want to create must be aligned to the rule of thirds of our camera. So hitting to the camera tab, we are hitting on the camera lens, we will be automatically directed to the camera tab. And now here is the main thing. Now searching throughout the internet, that I found out that landscape photography is best done within 28 millimeters. 28 millimeters is actually very good, and using the camera preset, while using Canon APS-C, it's totally a personal touch. You can use whatever you want, but actually I find that focal length of 28 and using Canon APS-C suits me better. Now I'll be positioning my camera again to its position, and over here in the compositions tab in display, I'll be using thirds, checking the thirds so that the rule of third is applied here. Now what my point is, I want my land to just align from this area and this area and going scattering all over, so that the bridge will be over here, so that there is a good alignment of a photorealistic scenario. So I'll be again saving it, excuse me for that. Now we will be adding a plane to our geometry. This plane I want to align somewhere like that, and hitting on the tab and going into the edge select, I want to select this edge and grab on the basis of Y. I want to increase somewhere like this, and hitting this again on the scale on the Y axis. I want to move it up over there, and selecting this one as it is my X axis. I want to cover the entire length so that there is no problem at all. Okay, so as we have done with it, now we will be selecting each and the total mesh here. And as you can see that the median point of our plane is not aligned properly, so we will be at first by hitting Shift S, we want to snap our cursor to the median point of the geometry. Cursor to select it, automatically snaps our cursor to the median point. And again, going back to the object mode, if I'm pressing Shift, Control and Alt as well as C, we are setting the origin. Now we want our origin to be to the 3D cursor, so now it's perfectly aligned. Now it's perfectly aligned to its median point. Now what we want is we want to apply the location as well as the rotation and scale of our object, so it does not get messy afterwards, and we want to add a mirror modifier to it. Now as you can see, it's good in its alignment, somewhat like that, achieving a good result. And again, hitting it up, we are enabling our editing tools so that we can see whatever we are doing. Now again, we have to subdivide it 70 times. I'm just subdividing it. Now selecting some of the vertex randomly by just hitting Shift, holding down Shift, and with the right click I have selected some of the random vertices, and turning on proportional editing by hitting O, we will now drag the Z axis, the axis of our geometry to the Z axis, and increase the diameter of our proportional editing, so it looks like it's a jagged, it's a Voronoi type of land. Now over here we have to add another thing. We will be selecting the entire edge here and submersing it up so that the entire point, because we know it very well that land is never uniform. Land does not actually appear to be uniform, perfectly uniform. There is a little bit of shakiness that goes around within the land. Now selecting again our land, we will be adding another modifier which we call displacement modifier, and this time we will be adding again the clouds as our texture, and increase the size of the cloud modifier over here, and adding a subdivision modifier to it. And you can I will have to tweak it out a little bit. 0.5 seems to be perfect for me. You can even tweak if you want to tweak it even more, you can tweak, but this thing actually seems good to me. No, this thing doesn't look good to me too right now, so I'm just cranking my proportional editing down and just giving it a little bit of structure shape. Okay, so again saved. So here our land and our water, our lake has been created very beautiful way. And now we will have to work about our bridge. Now in order to create that bridge, we need to go to a different layer. So let us go to a new layer, fresh new layer, and I want my 3D cursor back to the center of the grid line. So I'm just putting Shift C in order to snip my 3D cursor back to its center. Now we'll just add a plane. I'm adding a plane and dragging it up along the x-axis until it satisfies me. Maybe a little. Now I'm satisfied. And now we'll go to tab mode and add some loop cuts here. 6, 7, 8 seems to work fine, but I am satisfied with this result. And now with our proportion, now having this both to vertex selected, either you can do by holding Alt and right clicking the middle of any two vertex, like this one or this one, or you can go to an edge select mode and just select an edge. So now I'm selecting the edge, and with my proportional editing on, let me go to the front orthographic view, and just drag it along the z-axis, and let's increase our diameter of proportional editing by just dragging our mouse wheel down. So you can see the area of our proportional editing is increasing, and it's actually finally starting to get a nice curve result. Okay, now I'm satisfied with this type of curve. Now let me just turn off my proportional editing for now, and now with holding Alt and right clicking on any of this edge, I'm selecting this one, and with this selected, let me hold Shift Alt and right clicking this one. So I've selected both of them, and again going to the front orthographic view, I want to extrude them, so I will press E to extrude, press Z to lock my extrusion to the z-axis, and slowly hover my keyboard mouse up until it satisfies my eyes. Okay, yeah, here I'm satisfied. Now before going and adding any other thing, I have to add some more loop cuts so that my mesh remains intact when I'm actually using arrow modifier. So in order to do that, I just press Ctrl R in order to have the loop cut, and without clicking, I'm just hovering my mouse into this corner, and then again adding the loop cuts and hovering my mouse along this path. Sorry about that. Hovering this here and over here, and then again I'm adding loop cut up here, another loop cut down here, and the same thing we'll be doing over here with the up loops and the down loop, and another loop I need to cut right here so that my mesh remains intact when I'm using some of the modifiers. Yeah, something like that is good to me. Now I'll be going back to my object mode, and I'll be adding two modifiers here. First one will be a solidify modifier, which will literally solidify my mesh. Now before the solidify modifier, it was just like a paper bridge. It was just like a paper bridge which didn't even look realistic. So in order to have that, we are just adding a solidify modifier and applying thickness to my bridge until it looks like it has been made of wood chip. Yeah, something like that seems good to me. And adding a subsurf modifier, cranking it up to level 2 until it looks something smoothed out. Yeah, now maybe I have to decrease the thickness of it a little bit. Okay, having done it, let me save this one. Same problem again. So going back to the front orthographic view, now my bridge is almost created. Now only one thing that I need to do is giving it a nice curve looking shape. As you can see, it has not achieved that curve look shape yet, so I'm selecting this edge, turning on my proportional editing, and then sliding it a little bit down so that it looks like it is a curve bridge. Yeah, like that. Now I'm happy with it, so let's apply its rotation and scale to it, and now you can see it has been perfectly shaped like a bridge should be. You can also increase its height by just dragging it up along the z-axis. Okay, this looks perfect to me. Now again, I'm actually applying rotation and scale to it so that there's no problem at all. So having this bridge created, I want the railings to be going along this curvature. Now you can actually in order to create that, at first I need a cube, scaling it down a little bit until it reaches this result, and I am pressing down, rotating along the y-axis, and yeah, as you can see, it is much thicker than the actual bridges. Now you cannot see the railings yet, so we need to crank it up to z-axis so that it looks like a railing and it does not look like a toy, and inserting this thing here. Now this is actually our railings that we are going to create. Let me put it down a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Now you have two different processes in order to achieve this. One, either you can create or duplicate each and means this geometry. Excuse me for that. You can actually either duplicate this thing and position it according to this curve manually, or you can leave that entire labor to Blender. I'm a lazy person, so what I need to do is I'm actually selecting this arc and going to edit mode and only selecting this top edged curve. Okay, nothing else. Sorry, not to do that. I'm just selecting top edged curve, nothing else is selected here. You can see in wireframe mode I've selected this top edge and just duplicating it by Shift D and right clicking to leave it where it is, and I'm making it a separate object. In order to do that, I just have to press P and it becomes a separate object, total separate, and I'm going back to the object mode, and now you can see that this is my bridge. Let me rename it, and this is the arc, totally a different path, so I'm calling it an arc. Now you can see that the arc has been doubled here because of the solidify modifier. It has been solidified and it has been doubled in its structure. So what am I going to do is here I am actually deselecting this solidify modifier, so it becomes totally a separate object. Now let me put this back on where it was, and I'm actually converting this mesh into a curve. In order to do that, you just have to press Alt C and it becomes a curve. Now you can see it has become a curve, so no worries about it. Now what am I going to do is selecting this edge, the beginning of my curve, and selecting my 3D cursor over here, cursor to select it, and going back to the object mode. You can see that my median point, my origin actually has been to the center of the grid line, and I want the origin of my arc to be here. So in order to do that, we have to just press Ctrl Shift Alt and C. Here we can set our origin to 3D cursor. Now whatever I will do, my arc will move according to the 3D cursor and not according to the center of the grid line. Now having done this thing, now let me apply rotation and scale to my curve as well. Now as I have told you, you can actually duplicate this railings and manually put it fitting according to the bridge. That is gruesome type of work, that's totally laborious work. Or you can leave the entire thing to Blender. Leaving the entire calculation to Blender, Blender will calculate each and everything, and it will create a very amazing type of structure around your curvature here. Now I'm a lazy person and I'm actually referring plan B. So what am I going to do is actually adding a modifier to it, which is an arrow modifier, selecting the fit type to fit curve and selecting my arc as a curve. Now you can see that it has gone way too much, and adding another modifier called curve, and my object will be arc. Now you can see that it has got way good looking. Now this thing is actually bugging me up because it actually doesn't look like it is a railing. So I'm actually going to have a fixed count of something like just cranking it up. Let me give an offset of say around 6 so that it looks like there's a gap between them, and counting it to 14, giving it a nice looking structure like this. Yeah, and let me scale according to z-axis a little bit. So one-sided of, as you can see, the total thing has been done by Blender itself, and you didn't have to work anything. You didn't have to work anything to create it manually. Now another thing, one-sided has been added, so we'll add another modifier. This time we'll be adding a mirror modifier, but in order to do that, we just have to apply this thing at first. Otherwise, if we are applying this thing to a mirror modifier, what it will do, it will actually spoil the entire thing and everything will be counted over from this area. So I am actually deselecting my mirror modifier here, applying my applying my arrow modifier and my curve modifier. So now that total thing has been meshed. Now I am again adding a modifier. This time I will be putting my 3D cursor back to the center of the grid, and this time I want the origin of this mesh to be as a 3D cursor. So in order to do that, Shift, Control, Alt and C I want my 3D origin to be at the 3D cursor. Now apply rotation and scale again, apply location again, and adding a mirror modifier based on y-axis. Ta-da! Now you can see that entire mesh has been done and you didn't have to work any of it. Now let me select my curve again and put it just above my railings, and this time also I will be adding a cube which will be actually resembling the roof of my railings this time. So let me put it back, let me position this one, and from the right view I'm positioning it over here. Yeah, something like that over here. Now we have done this thing so far. Now let us apply rotation and scale here again. This time we will be adding an array modifier, but this time we are actually putting fit curve and using arc, and again using curve modifier, tempering the object as an arc. Now you can see the entire mesh has become, the entire thing has become a solid mesh. Let us apply the thing again, and you can either add a mirror modifier. Let me first put the location as well as rotation and scale, and let us add a mirror modifier again based on the y-axis. Now you can see beautifully our railings has been created. Now if you want to tweak the position a little bit you can, but I am pretty much satisfied with what I've got here. Just a little bit of tweaking so that there's a little bit of a problem, and then applying rotation and scale. So we have created a bridge and we have created our terrain as well as the water. So now we will be adding the grasses and the other substance as well as the materials in order to achieve that kind of a photorealistic look. Now before going anywhere else, let me at first join these three together so that it becomes as one single object. Sorry, let us not join, let me make it a group, and we'll rename that group as bridge. Let me save this one. So moving on to the next part of the video. Now as far as the other meshes are concerned, means the nature pack, I will be adding a tree, I'll be adding some sort of grasses to my terrain. So in order to do that I need to go to another windows over here. So I've gone to another layer, visible layer. Here what I'm going to do, I will model my trees, and I have got myself some grass pack. I'll be applying those as a particle system, so I don't have to work it all over and over again. Now in order to create the trees, let us first create the tree. Let us go to the front orthographic view again by hitting numpad 1, and here you what I'm going to do is just adding by holding shift and A, just adding a curve, go to curve and adding a sapling tree gen. Now if you do not find your sapling tree gen over here, if you don't have that options available to it, it is very easily found. All you have to do is go to file and go to your user preference, and in the add-ons tab just you have to search for sapling, and here we are. This, all you have to do is check this box and save user settings, and you have to go back to your 3D view, and just like that I am going to add sapling region, and immediately you can see that there is something which looks like a tree or a skeleton of a tree, but it is actually a curve. All we have to do is there is a lot of settings here of the sapling at tree. There are lots of options: geometry, branch radius, branch splitting, blah 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 blah, but we will be not cranking, or we will be not tweaking every settings over here, because the main part of the scene is not the tree but the bridge itself. So we had gone to the detailings of the bridge, and this will be just shadowed by the fog and mist, so we can just achieve a normal shape of the tree and will be just fine. But one thing should be put in mind: you cannot go beyond, you cannot select, or you cannot go you cannot select any other objects while tweaking the settings down. Otherwise you have to create the curve generator, and again you have to do the settings all by yourself. Now the first setting that I'll be doing here is bevel it up, just to give it a solid structure. And the bevel resolution I want to give 8 resolution. You can increase the resolution according to your choice, but since it is not actually my main subject of the picture, so it is not so important to give it a huge high poly or high polished mesh like structure, because it will be shadowed all over there. Now what I am going to do is over down here in the load preset, there are lots of presets over there. I will be taking small anything you can. There Japanese maple is there, Douglas fir is actually a huge tree, but I will be just taking it as I will be selecting this white birch. The white birch, you can see that the branches, as our photo consists of dead trees, so this is sort of a tree that I will be selecting. Now here I will be taking some random seeds in order to give it a random look, so it's not getting too much of it. And in here branch splitting, I will be going to the branch splitting, and over here base split. Here we have 2 base splits, means the base has been splitted by 2 different parts. I'll be just going it to 1 base split, or you can also go to 0 base splits. It will create a long tree with lots of branches, but I am satisfied with this one. You can do anything you want. And over here I will be splitting these levels to 3. So what will be it will do, it will add, these are the main branches. Let me at first clarify this one. This is a main base of the trunk, and the base has been splitted into 2 into 1. It was a base mesh, and it has been splitted once here. Now the second level, this is a first level branch, this is a second level branch over here, and if I am leveling it up, then the second level branch will have some more branches, means branches will come out of the second level branch, which will be even more realistic if you want. But do not go beyond 4 level branch, or otherwise it depends upon your computer, your machine. It often lags a lot and even crashes. Blender often crashes with this cranking up too much. So yeah, I'm satisfied with this, and I'll do nothing with it. So my trees has been created, and I'll be renaming it as tree as it is given. And another thing that I want here is some grasses. Now I have some ready-made grasses that I have created already. You can go to my another video which I am uploading, how to create realistic looking grass or grass pack. I have created it all by myself, or you can go ahead and watch any other tutorial about grasses. You can do whatever you like. And very soon I'm also opening my own website about Blender assets. There it will be available for free. You can choose any option you want, but if you're selecting to have my assets, it will take like a month, because I'm still working on it. There are lots of assets to be done there, so no more hassle here, no more blabbering over here. I'm just linking, or better to say I'm appending some of the assets over here. Now there are two tabs over here, link and append. There is a difference. Although this two brings up your same blend mesh in this blend file, what link does, you cannot edit your geometry or your asset, but append gives you a lot of options to tweak the settings, or to even deform the mesh, whatever you want. You have your freedom to edit that mesh with append, but link is just like a locked door. You cannot use that asset to edit or to modify it. So I'll be appending here, and I have my assets in this area. Manage assets. There is grasses. So I have done a group here. From the library, and immediately you will find out that I have 5 types of grasses that I have already created here. Now these grasses and this tree, it will be used as a particle system. Now, having our assets done, let us return back to our first layer, where we will be putting the tree as well as the grasses into our mesh. Now before going any further, I want to select, and I do not want my grass to be uniformly divided, or better to say to be covered the entire mesh here, because it will be a lot of time to render. Although you can see when I am putting it on a camera view, it will render only this area, and the majority of the mesh will be left unrendered. But when I am actually using those grasses as a particle system and covering the whole mesh, it will take a lot of time to render only this part, because of the presence of these particle systems over here. So it is needless to give my particle systems, to define my particle systems here. So what am I going to do is adding some vertex group over here, or adding a weight paint over here, so that my grasses will only be visible in this area, and the entire areas beyond this camera lens will be left unparticled. So in order to do that, let me go to the top orthographic views by pressing numpad 7, and here I am going to edit mode. You can see the edges has been selected here. I'm going to select the vertex groups, and here I'm going to create some of the vertex. You can do text weight paint mode, but I am here selecting my circle selection tool by pressing C. Now before doing that, let me at first deselect every vertices. You can see that these vertices has been selected as we had done it before. So by hitting A, I have deselected everything, and by hitting C, I have gone to a circle selection mode. And now here I am going to tweak some of the vertex. I am selecting some of the vertex so that this is created, this gets this vertex has been selected. And in order to check whether it is actually aligned with my camera view, let me go to numpad 0. Now we can see that it's not too much aligned with our camera view. So again we are hitting pointing to C and selecting these vertices as well. Okay, that seems to be fine to me, and all I'm going to do is define this as a vertex group. I'll be selecting this as a vertex group, hitting on plus button. I am renaming it as a grass so that I can remember that this vertex group is only ascribed for the grasses. Let me assign this one. Very important part of this, you have to assign this, otherwise your vertex group won't be activated when you are putting your particle system. Now I'll be adding another vertex group, and this time I will be just selecting this area randomly, some of the area, to create the trees, renamed as a trees, and then clicking on assign. So we have got two different vertex group here. Just select, and in trees we have got this one. Okay, so let us select this one. Okay, let us go back to edit mode. Now let us go back to our particle system in order to apply those particle system. Now before going there, let me go to my modifiers tab and let me apply this mirror modifier so that it is a single object, not a mirrored object. So this is actually a single object, there is no mirror modification over here. And let us go now to our particle settings, and let's create a particle system, and we will be renaming it as grass, and the settings will be also renamed as grass. And here from emitter I will be selecting here. Now in this vertex group, let me select the density to the grass so that my entire mesh won't be actually taking up the particle system, but only the vertex group that I had selected has selected the hair type. Now you can see it is it's looking awful because of the fact that it is actually a hair. Now over here in this we'll be checking on advanced so that we can tweak even more when our object is not actually unified here. Now in this area, the render settings, over here it is actually path. Now we will be selecting a group instead of a path, and the duplicate group will be our grass. So now you can see very little of the grasses is there, but the one thing that we are finding it out that the grass is actually pointing downwards, and majority of the grass has been laying down like this. These are the dead soldiers. Let us increase the size a little bit, maybe 0.9, sorry, 0.09. That was my bad. And over in this area under rotation tab, we will be clicking the rotation, and the initial orientation we will be taking as a global Y. This will take my entire group and it will ascribe it according to the Y axis. Now you can see that the grass has been created. Now let me crank the number of the emission to around 5000 so that the grass is looking even more good. But one thing we can find that these grass are actually standing uniformly. It's not actually what nature teaches us. Every grass has got its random scale, randomness in its size, randomness in its movement. So we will be going to this Brownian section and give it a little bit of 0.2 Brownian setting so that it's actually moving a little bit, maybe even more, yeah, like this. And the size of it is 0.09. I will be adding some sort of a randomness to the sizes so that every other trees are different from the other. Sorry about that. So having our first particle settings applied, let us set the project again in case our computer get crashed. We'll be adding another particle system here in this very same mesh, and this time we will rename it as the trees. And the setting will also be named as trees, and for our own convenience let us turn the visibility of the first particle system down, so it's absent. It's actually there, but in the viewport I won't see it, so you can see that there is an ease in my workflow over here. Now we will be again setting the type of the particle system to be hair, and here on the vertex group I will be taking the density to be the trees. So, and instead of the emission number 1000, maybe 8 will be good. Yeah, 8 will be good to me. And here in the emitter tab I will be taking object as my duplicate object, and I will be adding my tree as my duplication. Now over here also you can find that the trees have become dead soldiers. Now we'll again go to the advanced settings and to their rotation settings and set the initial velocity to again global y-axis. Now you can see that our trees have been generated here with a very small size. So now over here all we have to do is crank the size of our tree up so that the trees look more like they are trees rather than they are the toy trees. Like this will be good. And if you want to set up your trees on a random scale, there are some seeds over here. It's totally depending on you what kind of seed you want your position to be. Now this one is good for me because I will be adding the bridge in between these two trees. And here you can also go to the random settings of the tree by just hitting on the randomness, normal, let us find it out. Yeah, randomness, you can increase the random size of it, and the size you can also increase to about 0.06. This will be good, and the randomness will be 0.2, so the trees are not uniformly shaped. Now having this done, let me again save this image, and this pretty much concludes our basic scene or basic scene setup. We have inserted our grass, we have inserted our trees, and now we are here going to this layer and selecting the entire group. You can select this group by going to this object data box, and over here you can press on select grouped, and the entire group is selected, hitting M and moving it to the first layer. Now all we have to do is align or shape my bridge properly so that the picture that I have taken become more realistic. So I do not need this grass right now, so I'm turning the visibility down here, selecting again the bridge or the base of the bridge, and again going back to our object data button and select group let me go to the top orthographic view and position my bridge right where it was. You can see that the bridge is actually too big for my scene, so I will scale it down and maybe even put my bridge right here. And as you can see that the arc has been way too much high, so the point of the scene is this part of the area will be at least the bottom of the bridge will be just above or just in touch with the 1/3 of this image. So having this scene set up, now our scene has been set up here quite naturally and quite beautifully. We have got our scene here. Now all we have to do is go ahead and add our light source here. As in the picture you have seen that I have added some lights here. Maybe I can even crank it even down. X-axis and as well as this. Okay, yeah, this scene seems to me in a good shape. Let me set this one, and we are moving ahead to the next part, to the next task that we have got is to add the light source. Now as far as my lamps are concerned, I will be appending again one of my assets that I have created. Again, you can go ahead and watch my another video about those assets, how to create those assets, or you can go to my website which will be opening soon, and you can download those assets either free or at a very low cost, or you can go ahead and model it yourself, or you can just go ahead and purchase those lamp material from any other areas. That totally depends on you. So right now moving on to my another layer, this layer. I don't need this curve anymore, so I'm deleting it. Now by again going to file and appending one of my assets here that I have created over time. This time I will be taking this asset as my lamp source material. Now you can see that this is already grouped here. Now I do not need the lamp material that has been provided with that has been created with my lamp asset. I do not need these things, so I'm deleting it. Instead I will be just adding UV sphere here, and those UV sphere will emit the light for my scene. So in order to properly align those UV sphere to this lamp, I'm selecting this lamp, going to the edit mode and selecting this area, this entire area, and snapping my 3D cursor to this selection, so the whatever I'm adding, it will be automatically aligned according to the cursor. And I'm adding a UV sphere here. Now this UV sphere is way too big, so I need to scale it down. Maybe this seems to be good here, and I'm just putting it down. Now this lamp material, I need my lamp to be visible when when I'm actually rendering it. So I am pointing it down a little bit so that my lamp will be visible, and I'll be duplicating this object again and put it wherever it was as it is, and again selecting to my lamp material, going to the tab mode. Now this time I will be selecting by deselecting everything, and by holding this one I want my cursor to be snapped here. So again cursor to selected, again going back to the object mode, hitting one of the spheres. You can see only one sphere, but another sphere is also there. and again hitting Shift S, I am giving it selection to cursor, so it is now aligned to my 3D cursor again. All I have to do is grab it down on the Z-axis a little bit so that my lamp material is added here. Now selecting all by A twice, because already I have selected those materials. If this green thing isn't appearing, or if everything isn't appearing either green or orange, that means you haven't selected everything. So now selecting everything, Control G, I'm making it another group and I'm renaming it as lamp. So this has been renamed as lamp as well. Now we are now moving it to our mother layer where the render is actually going on. Now as you can see, my viewport has started to be slowing down, so I'm selecting this mesh, going to my particle system, and again display the turning off the display of those particle system as well. Now what I am going to do is select this base, going to the object menu and selecting the group. So my entire group is selected and scaling it down a little bit, maybe this seems to work fine with the scene, and positioning right where I want it to be. Now the base is actually being visible, so I'm just sending it back. Now as this thing has been done, I am taking my cursor, 3D cursor, back to the center. So Shift C, and now we are applying rotation and scale as well as the location. So what is happening again, if I am adding a mirror modifier to it, I'm sorry about that, it's actually not a mesh. So anyway, my bad. So after I'm putting it back to, so I'm putting my my 3D cursor back to its origin point or at the center. Now just duplicating the entire mesh again here, I am bringing it up here, and as you can see, the lamp is actually facing somewhat like this. So rotating on the Z-axis, I am rotating it so that both the lamp looks like this, or even rotate on Z 90 degree, rotate on Z 180 degree. This seems to work fine. Now again, let me just put it back and duplicating this again and giving it like this area, and again duplicating the entire mesh, sending it back in here, and again rotating on the Z-axis minus 180 degree. So this concludes our modeling of the entire scene. For my convenience, I can turn up my visibility of my modifiers tab. Now you can see that there is a good light and shadow complexion that will be going on all around my scene. So this pretty much completes the modeling of my scene. Now all I need to do is apply the materials and tweaking it up on compositor, and that will be giving a realistic look or a beautiful scenery type, as we have already been seen in the display image of this video. So let me save this one and let us move ahead to apply the materials to my assets. Now in order to apply the materials to my assets over here, these particle systems that I have created, the grasses and the twigs there, have already been applied its material here. All I need to do is give the rest of the scene its materials and my entire scene will be completed. Now let us go back to my third layer where this tree has been generated there. Selecting this mesh here, I'm just not giving it I'm not going to give it a more realistic type of look because of the fact that it will be total gloomy. So just hitting on the materials tab and hitting on new and just giving it a diffuse color and just cranking the color over here to be like brown, very dark brown indeed. And that concludes my tree material. Now we'll be getting back to our viewport, the mother layer, and let me select this one and we will be turning off the visibility of our particle system. Now this have also got its own shaders applied. These have also got its shaders applied, only we don't have any materials applied to the light source here. So let me select one ball. I'll be selecting only one ball and only one sphere, and we will be adding a new material here, and this time we have to work in our node editor in order to achieve that kind of look. So let me divide my viewport into two different visible layers, and here I'm changing my viewport to node editor. As you can see, nodes are generally based on the materials that are applied in materials and textures that will be applied to our mesh. Now by default it is a diffuse, so I'm selecting this diffuse BSDF and deleting this one, and by hitting shift A I'm giving it a shader over here, an emission shader. Emission shader will give it a light emitting from this mesh, and the color I will be leaving the color as it is, but here by searching throughout the web I found out that these light bulbs actually have its own temperatures. The temperatures actually describes the much farther you go, the darker its color will be, or the reddish its color will be, and the much closer you will get to the mesh it will become white. So here I will be adding, in order to achieve that kind of look, I'll be adding going to the converter and add black body to it. Black body simply gives a Kelvin scale, and the temperature I want to give it here is 2500. It will give a good color to my lamp, and the strength I want the strength of my lamp to be around 50, and this automatically you will notice that this will give you a good source of light. If I am hitting render, viewport render, you can see that it's actually giving it a very dim light. Now in order to achieve much more of the light, all I have to do is select this bulb or UV sphere and go into the viewport render, increasing the strength to around 100 can give you a much better look to it. Okay, so just going again to the object mode and applying, let me select all the other spheres that is present here by just clicking on them manually. You don't have to click right on the mesh. All you have to do is just click just nearest to the mesh and everything will be your mesh will be selected. Selecting all the other mesh and at last selecting the mesh with the node applied, the material applied here. If I am hitting Ctrl L and if I am linking to the materials, automatically all the UV spheres will be linked with the same materials that I have given to this sphere. So if I am again going to my viewport render, you can see that each and every UV spheres are emitting the same sources of light. Now you can increase or decrease, you can tweak your light according to the condition. I have to increase the render preview to around 200 in order to look better to it. You can see that the image is starting to take shape more and more. Even I can increase it to 500 in order to see what is actually going on around the scene. Okay, so I found out that the light may be too dim for this scene, so all I have to do is select again the first UV sphere that we had selected, the ones that we had applied the materials, and again going back to the viewport and going to the viewport render. If I am increasing the strength to around 500, automatically you will see that the entire scene has been lighted in a very good fashion rather than that in a dim fashion. So the entire scene has been lighted very good. Now I am satisfied with the light source that I have created here, so let me save this one again and let us give the bridge a texture rather than that of materials. So in order to give it a texture, let me select each and everything. Let me select this one, going to the Modifiers tab, Object Link tab, selecting Group, and let me move it to a different layer so that there is an ease with the workflow. All I have to do is take this bridge as my base, and already the location and rotation has been applied. Selecting each and everything, and let's hit U to unwrap. You do not have to, I can say it has non-uniform scale, so let me apply the rotation and scale to it, and let me again unwrap this mesh. Now automatically it is unwrapped. You can unwrap or you cannot, it's according to your own style. Now in this node editor, I'll be creating new material to it, applying new material to it, and I will be adding an image texture that I have downloaded, this image texture, and I'm plugging the color output to the color input of my diffuse BSDF, and hitting on open. I'm going to desktop, and here I am selecting this brick-like texture to it, so that my bridge has got its texture applied. Now one thing is to remember, you have to define that the texture has been coordinated. So let us give us a texture coordinate, and going to the vector, let me input the mapping, plugging the vector to the vector and plugging generated to vector or UV to vector, it's your own choice. Now if I am going to test what my model is actually looking like, I can either go to my materials tab, and this time you can see that the texture is way too big. So all I have to do is crank my scale up a little bit. When I'm increasing my scale, automatically it is aligned properly with the bridge. You can see that it's getting a much better result than it had before. Now that I'm satisfied with this, let me select this railing and this railing, and again this mesh, and hitting Ctrl L, applying the same materials to it so that everything looks uniform. And having done it, let us bring it back to our mother layer. So when I'm going back to my mother layer, and I can see that this has been done quite well. Now all we have to do is apply some texture to our ground and define our water. That's it. That will conclude this tutorial. So now again applying rotation and scale. Here I am hitting on new texture, new material to it, plugging an image texture again to the diffuse BSDF, the color output of the BSDF, and going to my desktop, I have actually downloaded this type of rock clips. Although it is rock clip, but it can simulate materials quite easily. You can see that it has got its color, but the texture isn't displayed quite well. This is because of the same infusion. We have to define that it has been mapped. We have to tell Blender that it has been mapped according to its UV coordinates. So going to the input, I'm using texture coordinate and plugging UV to our vector. We have not UV unwrapped it, so we are giving it a generated. Now generated is actually giving it quite a huge mesh. You can see that the texture is applied, but the scale is huge. So again we are cranking the scale up a little bit in order to get that kind of look. This seems to work fine with it, and although this seems to work fine with it, another thing that we want to give it, if you want to get a realistic look of this cliff, you have to duplicate let me duplicate this image texture over here, plug the same vector output to this vector input, and selecting this to non-color data. I'm just using the same texture with the same scale in order to define a bump map in this mesh so that the image won't look flat. So in order to do that, let me add a vector here, bump, and this time I will be plugging my color output to the height of my bump map, and I will be plugging the normal to the normal of the BSDF. So this will give a good bump to my mesh. You cannot see it and yet because it is only applied, and the strength would be given 0.2. Now I could easily give another glossiness to this land, but it is needless to give glossiness over here because it will be just wastage of time. It will increase the render time of your it will increase your render time quite drastically, as because this area or this neither of this thing would be crystal clear to the view of you, so it is needless to give it glossiness to it. So again I am taking this area and doing the same process here by duplicating the image texture, plugging the vector output to the vector input of this area, and going to the non-color data, adding a bump node to it by just going to the vector bump, plugging the color input output to the height, cranking the strength down, and plugging the normal of my bump to the normal of the diffuse BSDF. That's it. And let us give, oh sorry, that there was a mistake that I have done. There is a plane that when I was creating this terrain, I accidentally forgot to delete this. Wait, let me delete this. We do not need it. Okay, so let us take this plane as if it is a lake. We will be adding another new material to it. Instead of diffuse, we will be adding at first a mix shader. This mix shader will be the generator of our shaders. The first mix shader, we will be using a glass. The glass will be like we will be plugging the output of the glass to the first input of the first shader, and the second one will be a glossy shader. Let's plug this output to the input of the second shader. Now the glass and the glossiness, the IOR or index of refraction will be given 1.333. That's what the water is, index of refraction. And I am not using 50% of the factor here. Instead, I'll be using a color ramp here in order to give the darker area a much glossiness than that of the area which is facing the light. The light when it will be reflected on that area will be just like water, and the other darkened area will be as glossy, so it will also give a roughness and shiny thing as it is. So let us go to the converter and add a color ramp to it, plugging the color output to the factor of our mix shader and just cranking it like this area so that there is a uniformity between these two a little bit. Okay, so that concludes our scene. That concludes our materials to the scene here. Now if you want to, I want to test this one. I want to test my materials, how my material is applied, so I'm giving it a quick render. So that my render has been finished here. Over here you can see that although it is looking very eye soothing, yet there are some issues that has to be tweaked. The first thing is the scene isn't being lighted enough, so I needed to give another light here, maybe even the light which resembles something like this, in order to illuminate my bridge a little bit better. And my lamp material is also not emitting quite that light, but it's okay because it is a foggy scene, so this kind of light is okay with that. Yeah, these are the things that I want to give. And another thing that I also needed to tweak a little bit is give some other hues to the point lamp that has been used here. So without wasting any more time, let us go. At first we have to post process our image here, so that when we are rendering it finally, we are getting a much better result. Now let us move to our post-processing mode here. Although it's very low sampled, yet we can get a much better results if we are actually using a post-processing mode here. So without wasting any more time, let us go here to our node editor. It will bring up to what was it? Okay, my lake was selected here. So without tweaking this lake here, let us go to this tab. It actually goes to our render layer, and in this render layer we will be using nodes and we will be using backdrop. So backdrop, what does this backdrop does? It actually gives a glimpse of what we are doing here. Now in order to do this, a very good process has been given here. This backdrop gives us a view of what we are doing. Now in order to do that, we have to use the node wrangler option. So again, you have to go to file, user preference, and in this add-on you have to search for node, and there you go, node wrangler. You just have to take this one and save your user setting as it is, and your thing is been done. Okay, sorry about that, my neighboring dog and my neighboring person has been blabbering a lot. Okay, let us go ahead and just hitting Control and Shift and then left click on this render layer. Automatically my viewer layer has been created here. Now this thing will give me a lot more option to see what my image is looking like here. So we will be adding at first going to the filter, and we'll be adding a glare node so that these lights won't look artificial. This as if a fog does, it actually glows. So we'll be adding a filter over here, a glare node here, and instead of the streaks, let me go to my composite structure. As you can see that it has automatically created a streaks here, but streaks are actually used for stars or something which is shiny. So we will not be using streaks here. We will be using fog glow, which gives us much of a realistic type of look. Now here you can see the fog glow that has been created here is too much, so I will be decreasing my threshold so that the boundaries of this glare will be increased. So I'll be using 0.8 as my threshold. Automatically you will see that it gives you a much better result than what it was before. And also I'll be using the size. I'll be increasing the size to about 9. Let me see it first. No, I'll have to decrease that one. Let me decrease that one to about 7, and see, you have got a good glowing effect to the lights that has been created there. Now moving on to another area is we need a color contrast, as this color is actually not satisfying to me. So I'll be using another node here, taking this color input here. I will be using hue saturation value, HSV in short, and here I will be giving my hue to around 5.2, just giving it a little bit of tint of the hueness. As you can see, before it was a reddish type of glow, now it has been glowing naturally. Saturation I can give 1.2, so that it will saturate my image. Sorry, not 1.02, excuse me for that. It will saturate my scene to a little bit, and the value or factor I will leave that thing entirely to whatever it is. So now that pretty much this compositing has been, now I'm satisfied with this compositing. It's a very simple compositing node that I've used here. Some of the other users use a more complex compositing node, but I am actually satisfied with my results. So I'm going ahead and saving my project again. I'm going back to my 3D view. Over here I need to tweak a little bit. I will be selecting this point lamp and duplicating that point lamp to around this area, and going to this lamp tab, I'll be using it as an area lamp so that the whole scene will be illuminated by some sort of a glow. And I'll be taking this lamp to be around like this, so that a little bit of a yellowish tint, so there is a perfect combination between blue and yellow, as well as the purple that has been given here. And over here I'll be selecting it as a rectangle so that I will be able to tweak the value on the size of X and Y. So I'll be cranking the size of this rectangle up to around 10, and as well as the size of Y around 10. So perfectly it has been made a square. And the size of it, let me at first go and see whether my lamp is actually working with ease or not. Okay, so I need to crank the value of my area lamp a little bit down, so let me give it around 500 something, which seems to me appeasing. What am I saying? Yeah. Okay, let me just grab it down a little bit so that this lamp becomes much whiter, as if the moon is over here and the entire scene has been fog glowed like that. Okay, so this concludes the modeling and the lighting of my scene. It is a gloomy type of scene. You can even add your personal touch. You can add a character here just walking down the valley, or even you can add some more trees, or even you can add this as a broken bridge. Now this broken bridge concept I am creating another tutorial on this broken bridge, how to create a broken bridge structure like on a snap. So I will be updating my videos soon. In my next video, you can check out my other videos. If you really like what I was working here, you can give me a thumbs up, you can like my video. Feel free to comment on my video if you have any more suggestions that can improve the render quality or improve my workflow a little bit better. So feel free to give me a comment, and if you want me to upload much of this like videos, then you can subscribe to my channel. So it's actually my own personal channel. I have been working Blender not too much, it's only has been 1.5 years. So I have learned a lot from various YouTubers, so I also gives a thumbs up if anyone teaches me, if anyone criticizes me, or if anyone gives me a comment on that. Okay, enough with the talking, let us give it a final render, and we will now see how my render is actually going on. Now this time, for the sake of my tutorial, I will give it a render of around 1000 samples. Excuse me, I'm having a sore throat. Yeah, I'll be having 1000 samples, and in order to speed up my flow, as I have learned from Andrew Price in his Blender Guru, you can actually decrease the bounces of your light to around, the maximum would be 4 and minimum would be 1. This drastically decreases the length of my render times. So I am very much thankful to Andrew Price for providing such a valuable piece of advice. Now in this but in this area, as it is actually our entire world is illuminated by volumetric lights, so we will be cranking my samples of volume to around 2. This will give me a lot of better render than it was before. And another thing that I want to do is where are you? In this lamp settings, I will be taking 0.9 instead of 0.09. I have tweaked some of my samples here. If you are getting too much noises, then you can do this kind of settings. You can increase the by default it's 0. You can increase the clamp indirect, as it is called, yeah, clamp indirect to 0.9 or 0.09. It depends on different computers. I don't know what type will suit you, but as if it suits your eye, it is very good. And you can also decrease the filter glossy to around 0.3. You can increase the filter glossy to around 0.3, and well, that saves you from a lot of noises. But still, if you're getting 1 or 2 noises, it's quite natural, because no photography, not even if you are taking from a DSLR camera, you will find out that there are lots of noises there are noises in this real world because of the acoustics that that is present in this, in any image. When the light is bouncing back from a light source and it's hitting on a diffuse or reflecting object, there is a lamping going around which leaves a traces of very tiny particles which are called fireflies or noises. So enough with this talking, let us give a final render. Okay, so this was my final render, and I have used 5000 samples, and you can see that I have got a very good result with it. So this concludes this tutorial. Hope you guys like it. If you like my video, and if you want me to share much more videos like this one, give me a like, hit like button, and subscribe to my channel so that it will encourage me to upload more and more videos and share the things with you. Okay, so have a good day. Peace.